And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Hi there, I'm National Weather Service meteorologist Peter Chan with your Alaska Aviation Weather Outlook on this Sunday, May 25th, 2025. And to set things up, we've had energy, some low pressure energy crossing the lower Bering, Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, heading east-southeastward. Meanwhile, a couple of impulses are coming up out of the North Pacific with some gusty winds to gale force, along with some bouts of moderate to heavier precipitation that will move up into the Panhandle, especially as we get into Monday evening, Monday night, and then Tuesday, Wednesday. And that area of low pressure moisture coming back toward the north and west as we head through the early and middle part of this week. Meanwhile, we find Monday morning, Memorial Day, inner channels, the intercoastal mountains of the Panhandle, IFR conditions also up through the Copper River Basin, west side of Prince William Sound, down along areas of Kodiak Island, Shelikof Strait, broad area of IFR along the north slope, Arctic coast, where there will be low stratus and some fog, even a little bit of light snow in areas. Also IFR along especially the north side of the Seward Peninsula, Shishmaref, Wales, on over toward Kotzebue Sound, and then a broad area of IFR conditions from St. Matthew down to St. Paul to just west of Nunavik Island, and then down into areas of the Alaska Peninsula. Now for Memorial Day, with the daytime heating, there is the potential for some scattered showers and thunderstorms to develop with the daytime heating, afternoon and early evening hours across the interior, all the way down even into areas of the Kuskokwim Basin. Meanwhile, we expect generally MVFR conditions along the Gulf Coast, but this area of low pressure with a frontal band of moderate to heavy rain and breezier conditions. We could see small craft to gale warning type winds coming on up in here, especially to areas of the Panhandle. Further west, we find IFR again lingering west of Nunavik Island down to St. Paul. And then on Tuesday morning, IFR conditions anticipated along the intercoastal mountains of the Panhandle. Also along especially the southeastward facing slopes of the central western Alaska range, because we're going to have that east-southeasterly flow going upward. Also on the east side of Kodiak Island, but a broad area of IFR conditions along the spine of the Brooks Range, especially north slope, Arctic coast, just low clouds, low stratus there with some fog, and there could be some pockets of lighter snow, and that also extends down through the lower Chukchi Sea, northern half of the Seward Peninsula into Kotzebue Sound. And we have some areas of IFR lower Bering around St. Paul, Pribilovs, and looking into Tuesday afternoon, still could be some scattered showers and thunderstorms across areas of the interior, especially to the northwest and north of the Alaska Range along the Yukon, Tanana, upper Kuskokwim rivers. Still IFR conditions, areas of the Panhandle. As I said, another wave of rain coming through Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday night, along with breezy conditions across the Panhandle. So IFR southern parts there, including looks like Heidelberg on over toward Hyder and up around Chilkoot, White Passes. And then in the far north, IFR conditions continue across the north slope. And we find pockets of IFR in the lower Bering just north of the eastern Aleutians and tip of the Alaska Peninsula, and just northwest there of the far western Aleutians out there toward Shemia and Attu. So the passes up around the Brooks Range, Anatuvik Pass will be MVFR becoming VFR on Memorial Day. Adigan Pass also MVFR becoming VFR. Lake Clark and Merrill, generally VFR conditions anticipated. On the west side of the Alaska Range, there could be some scattered showers and thunderstorms popping up with the afternoon heating. And same thing, Rainy Pass VFR, but as you get out toward the west entrance and certainly further west of there, could be a scattered storm develop with the daytime heating. Windy Pass, also the same thing, VFR, but a scattered thunderstorm could pop up there in the afternoon and early evening. Isabel Pass, the same thing. VFR through the pass, but generally a potential for some scattered showers and storms, especially crossing over on the north side of the Alaska Range. Mentasta Pass should generally see just VFR conditions on Monday. Tanita Pass starting out IFR in the morning, giving way to MVFR. And then Portage Pass The bulk of Memorial Day will be MVFR. Out over Prince William Sound, we have a tendency to find IFR conditions. And then in Chilkoot and White, far north end of the Panhandle, IFR conditions becoming MVFR. So looking at the freezing levels on Monday morning, the surface freezing line running up along the East Asian coast there, up through the Bering Strait, north side of the Seward Peninsula, down along the south slopes of the Brooks Range. We also have areas of below freezing temperatures in through the mountains here in southern Yukon, inside there, British Columbia. As far as freezing levels aloft, they do bump upwards around and over 6,000 feet up through the middle, upper Yukon and Tanana valleys. We also find cooler pocket of air over the central lower Bering, including the central eastern Aleutians into the Alaska Peninsula at or just below 2,000 feet. And those come back upwards 4, 6, 8,000 feet as you get well southwest of the Aleutians in the North Pacific. So the potential, though, with this moisture coming up out of the North Pacific, we're still going to have showers linger all along the Gulf Coast, especially northeastern Gulf Coast and on in through the Panhandle for Memorial Day. That's just going to be persistent. There'll be a heavier round of moderate to locally heavier rainfall moving in for Monday night and again later Tuesday. So there's a couple of waves and some gustier winds that'll be moving through the Panhandle and along the northeastern Gulf Coast. But we could have moderate icing above 8,000 feet Panhandle out here through the eastern Gulf. As we get inland across the southern mainland above 6,000 feet, and then out through here, this area could see the convection, scattered showers, thunderstorms, potential for some briefly heavier downpours, maybe some small hail, as well as lightning strikes. And then back here out down along the North Pacific, along the Alaska Peninsula, there could be some moderate icing above 6,000 feet, and then way to the west of the western Aleutians, there could also be some moderate icing above 8,000 or 10,000 feet. So jet stream winds, we have a southwest jet core coming in off the North Pacific toward Haida Gwaii. And then behind me on the backside of the trough, we have a jet core 135 to 140 knots just south of the Aleutians, but just a broad trough of low pressure over the mainland, centered axis kind of running down here along the west coast into the Alaska Peninsula. At 9,000 feet, there is a low circulation here in the lower Gulf. And if I step over this way, you can see those stronger winds coming on up into the Panhandle. Here's a core of winds at 9,000 feet or 700 millibars, 50 to 70 knots. This is associated with a frontal boundary that will be lifting northward across the Panhandle, and then we can see it more clearly at 3,000 feet, especially by the time we get into Monday afternoon and evening. There will be some stronger winds along this frontal boundary that could reach 50 knots. So this area here could also include some low-level wind shear as we go into Monday evening and Monday night. And we have some brisker winds just south of the Alaska Peninsula, 35 to 40 knots on Monday there in the North Pacific. So the greatest threat for turbulence Monday, especially as we get into later in the day, later afternoon, and certainly by Monday night, there is the potential for some moderate to isolated severe turbulence there, Dixon Entrance, just off of Prince of Wales Islands at around Haida Gwaii, surface to 6,000 feet. Also some potential for low-level wind shear along that frontal boundary as it lifts northward Monday evening and Monday night. And then along areas of the Gulf Coast, just outside of Kennedy Entrance there, 6,000 surface to 6,000 feet, and also some moderate turbulence southwest of Kodiak Island and on the North Pacific side, south of the Alaska Peninsula, and then we'll also find some moderate turbulence, especially back through the central Aleutians on Monday, surface to 3,000 feet.